It's been almost 18 years since this family filed a missing persons police report with UPD. The not knowing is agonizing, and the what ifs lead to a tortured mind for Emily Anderson, the missing man's daughter, and her family. This case is one of more than 1,200 active missing persons cases in Utah.
Thank you all for being here. So the first part of this is we're going to go into Stephen. Who was Stephen? I think you probably speak more accurately, personally, of Stephen and who he was. Maybe we can go back like when you guys met. Who was he? Where was he born, and so forth? Where did he grow up? Tell us about Stephen.
He was a lot of fun. He was a character, and he had a laugh, and he taught all of us about the comedy that we all now know as, you know, our family comedy. It was a lot of movies and lines and jokes. He was just fun to a downfall. Wasn't as responsible as some people are, because he was just fun. He just thought life should be fun. And it took us a long time to get Axel here. It was about 5 years of infertility, and then we got him, and then things fell apart, and he moved on to try to make his $1 million business on his own. He didn't like being tied down to a specific job where I have to go in and do all of that, because his personality was just much more flamboyant. He was a bodybuilder, loved being big. Arnold Schwarzenegger was his idol, and he lifted weights. He always had weights wherever he went. So he started his own gym, and he met his second wife there, and they had a couple of kids, and then he did seem to have some mental issues that were going on, and his dad was trying to get him on some medication and in to see people, but that, you know, to him was a weakness, and he didn't think he had any problems, and we could all see a little bit of dissent going on, because things just weren't working out the way he intended them to. He thought he could go out and just, you know, start a business and become a millionaire, and he liked fancy cars and liked to spend money and liked the good life, and it wasn't working out for him. And so I think that was very depressing to him, and 2 failed marriages and not making the money he wanted, and his life just wasn't going the way he thought it would.
Okay. Why don't you guys tell me about your dad, whoever wants to start. How was he as dad when you guys were growing up? Just share some early memories.
I mean, we went to the lake all the time. We spent a lot of time boating and did a lot of sports. He was big into the bodybuilding, football. I played baseball, Axel played baseball. But yeah, we spent a lot of time in Flaming Gorge, Coeur d'Alene, a lot of boating.
I felt like a princess.
Well,
I mean, I had a great childhood. I really did. I mean, I think he did a great job with me, and all the way up until, you know, it wasn't like 12 when you guys, I was 12 when you guys divorced. All the way up until then, and then once they divorced, gone. So that was rough.
Mm-hmm. He moved on to the new family.
But my childhood was great. So.
It's tough. He was my idol. In every way. Incredibly smart, incredibly driven, athletic. Everything that I wanted to do, he made sure we did. I think my parents divorced when I was 3, 4.
Yep.
So I lived back and forth between my mom and my dad. It was great. I mean, it was tough having to adjust going back from his house and to her house and just adjusting personally, how each of them liked to do things. And he always wanted to be involved. He always wanted to be involved in every step of the way. Extremely supportive. I remember I quit football one year because of a girl. She said that she didn't like football, and probably because they were all jocks. And so I told my dad, and it was tough. And I mean, I was great at it, and I just dropped it, and never talked to the girl again. You know, I was 12, 13, and he supported me along the whole way, despite his aspirations of wanting to go into the NFL and wanting that same thing for me, and saw that I had the ability, and didn't matter. He asked if I wanted to do that, and that was it. Extremely supportive. He pushed me to be better in every possible way. He loved spending time in the sun, loved his kids, loved grilling.
Boating.
Working out.
Loved having his shirt off.
He liked to show that body that he worked on.
Well, he worked hard for it. He worked hard for it.
I think there was a lot of the time. I know I can't remember if it was he was laid off.
And with unemployment set to rise, many people are already having to cope with losing their jobs.
I mean, it devastated him, and he just cared so much about his image, but also how other people treated him and respected him. He wanted to be somebody that everybody looked up to and came to, and it also to a fault, because it hurt a lot when that didn't happen. For instance, I was probably 11. I was on the way to our airport to fly back to Spokane to go back to my dad's, and I just decided that I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay with my mom, and called him up, and I mean, he was devastated. And later he moved back to Utah and came back to be close to me again, and brought the family back, and yeah, there's, no matter the ups and downs, he was always attentive and there, and wanted to be involved.
Sorry, man. If at any time we need to take a break, like, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I understand these are obviously very tough things to talk about. It's important, like I said, for us to also, at the same time, be able to represent your father the way he needs to be represented. And it's going to speak for him and you guys and the story. And if we're unsuccessful in our searches, this is what everybody is going to be able to draw on, and they might be able to relate and know and come back to these times and realize they remembered something. So any of the little things when you're talking, you may not think they matter, but they really do. And if there's things that, like I said, you need to take a point to take a break, like we can just take a break, because it's not my intention to capture your guys' tears in a negative way. I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to do that at all. But I also understand, like, it's not easy stuff. So just want to know we're.
Thanks.
Yeah.
This is very raw for this family still 20 years later, and so we're really thankful that you're doing this, and I just would love for you to, I mean, I know you'll do your best, but just to bring these kids closer would be amazing.
Up towards the end, he was struggling. She had remarried fire chief of South Salt Lake, and they got to a point where my dad thought that he was using technology against him, bugging his house, putting things in his chewing tobacco, started to feel very conspiracy theory-ish, that people were out to get him. And it was strange, and I remember talking through that with him, and not understanding fully where he was at, being 15 at the time. Just okay, that's weird. And just right up until the end, the last conversation, he came to pick me up to go to the cabin on this trip, where his last known whereabouts, and I had forgotten I had a birthday party to go to, and I told him no at the door, and that was it. You never think that it's going to be the last time you talk to somebody. But what I was going to get to is before that, maybe a month or two, he had the business that he had built, Friend's Best dog food company. It was part of Trilogy Nutrition. He had told me that he had made the deal to have the business acquired, and he had sold his portion of the business, and with his state of where he was at, I didn't know what to believe, and he told me what he had sold it for, and I remember jokingly scoffing, saying, well, I thought you were going to get $1 million for it, and it wasn't quite that, and the look of disappointment in his eyes, albeit a joke, it was that probably hurt. But I bring that up because at that time, if he truly did sell and somebody purchased the business, he had a nice chunk of change available to him. So I don't know that anybody else ever knew that, heard that, but wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. So in our discussions this morning with detectives, actually Ben Pender, who is the detective assigned to the case, there was conflicting stories on that, which there was somebody gave a statement saying that it went belly up, and then there was another statement saying that he actually did really good exiting the business. Those two things are, obviously polar opposites. So knowing that, what do you guys think, really?
He was living in a garage in his parents' backyard with very little, tiny little space. Very sad, very, very sad way to live. Okay. And I think he was very embarrassed and sad and let down. If there was money, he would not have been living there. I think it might have been in talks, but it was never finalized, or he would not have been living there.
Because it sounds like to me what you guys describe is he loved living and
but it
buying
wasn't
things.
Happening the way he expected.
So if he would have gotten a lot of money, it would have been known.
It would have been
known. Maybe I can share a few things here, and I want to come back to kind of Steve's mental state as well. But my understanding, as my mom and dad passed away, and talking with them, the company was a failure. And my mom and dad had to take a second mortgage out on their home to help bail Steve out. My dad got involved in things with the development company that helped fund the company, and so my understanding from the documents that I saw when I was helping with my dad, it was Steve had to get out of it because it was belly up. Okay. And one of the partners, I think it was Cow Ranch Stores, is that right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Kind of bought it out, but he lost his money. And to Cheryl's point, my mom and dad didn't have a lot of money. They lived in Taylorsville, Utah. Steve lived in a room that they had built as kind of a storage room in the back of their house. It didn't have a kitchen, it didn't have a bathroom. He would come in the house to go to the bathroom. So it was a very meager, very...
far below his expectations.
Yeah, and to your point, he did love the good life. And I think, as I've talked to my older brother, so I'm 8 years younger. My older brother's 11 years, so we've always, and my oldest brother, Dave, I mean, he's an MD, he was a pilot, incredibly bright. And Dave has always said, you know, Steve was the brightest, the most talented out of all of us. And I think when you have those gifts of incredible intelligence and both physically, mentally, you have these expectations of what you can do. And I think Steve struggled with that throughout his life of, I can do this, but my reality is something very different.
Yep.
And that's hard for people to have those amazing gifts. Because reality is never what he thinks he can do. And that was Steve's demon, I think, his whole life. And and maybe to what you guys were sharing of kind of the last few years where there were those demons mentally, you know, mental health runs through a line of my family. So my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, I remember as a kid having those same, I would go into her home and she'd have the FBI signs, CIA signs. She was always calling him because of some UFO and you know, I was like 5 or 6 going, what's going on here? So there's a history of mental health illness. And I think growing up with Steve, there was incredibly joyful, positive Steve. And then to kind of your point, Trev, there was this very, you know, and you never knew who was going to walk in the door. And I say that with all the love that I have for my brother, but knowing now what I know about mental health, there was a, you know, I think if he was diagnosed, he'd probably be bipolar or some other type of mental health that he had. And it definitely ran in my family. So he had kind of that mental health challenge. And then as has been shared, he also played football. And my older brother, there was that movie that came out about
CTE.
And he called me, Dave, you know, really calls me right after a movie, and he was just sobbing, saying, this is Steve. So he had this kind of genetic challenge that ran in our family. Plus, I think he did experience just playing football throughout his life.
A lot of impact injury to the brain.
Right.
Yeah.
So as the journey kind of kept going and going, you just saw a lot of mental health challenges that caused a lot of pain. I mean, we all felt that pain. We felt this amazing joy of Steve, but I think we all experienced, you know, the pain that's associated with that. And so you had this individual that when he went missing, that was dealing with mental health, and my mom and dad tried for years to get him in. But, you know, he's an adult, he can do what he wants to do. And then you have, you know, the concussion related things that I think is a very real thing. I know he was up at our house maybe 2 or 3 days before, and he just wasn't, he just wasn't the frame of mind that I'm like, you know, he's somebody else. He's a different person.
He just seemed so, I mean, like he'd met my dad many times and he was introducing himself to my dad. Like something was going on, I feel like neurologically at that time that was maybe causing him to not connect with reality.
Yeah.
And now we're like, this is a medical condition. And I do think Steve struggled with that throughout his life. Undiagnosed.
The culture surrounding, you know, mental health is completely different nowadays.
So hindsight,
and as you said, hindsight is tough in these scenarios because the longer, the clearer, and there's pros and there's cons to that, you know, and a lot of the things that a few of you touched on, it's kind of unfair to do as well, you know, looking back and, you know, with the what ifs and so forth. That's tough, and don't carry those burdens, you know. You can't judge something, you know, with that kind of hindsight because we're in the middle of our lives, moving 100 miles an hour and on different playing levels. And when he went missing, his dad reported him missing. According to the police file this morning that we went over with Detective Pender.
So my name is Ben Pender. I'm a detective with Unified Police Department of Greater Salt Lake, and I am assigned to our cold case homicide and missing person unit.
Tell us about the case, how you got the case, and just kind of start from the beginning.
This case actually came in 2004. It was reported by Stephen Willard Anderson's father, and his name was Boyd Anderson. And apparently what happened is he indicated that on June 3rd, which was a Thursday, that his son Stephen was heading up to their cabin up in the area of Flaming Gorge. And he left in a 2001 Toyota Sequoia, dark green in color. It had a Utah plate of 597 Lima Papa Alpha, so LPA, and expiration of 5/2005. It was a Ski Utah license plate on the vehicle. The vehicle was being leased through Toyota, and he was headed up to the cabin for a little while to help his father out by doing some painting up there at the cabin, and never arrived. So at some point between the 3rd and the 5th of June 2004, his father tried getting in contact with him. There was no answer. So on June 5th, which was a Saturday of 2004, his dad Boyd actually drove up to the cabin. It didn't appear that Stephen ever made it to the cabin on that date. And so he was getting concerned about it, couldn't get in touch with Stephen. So he actually came back home, and then on Monday, the 7th of June of 2004, he actually took a friend with him back up to the cabin to see if they could locate him up in the area or at the cabin. He didn't know if maybe Stephen, took a detour somewhere else before he went to the cabin and just didn't say anything to his parents about it. But he went back up on June 7th of 2004, again, not able to find him. His father had actually even contacted the phone provider, who indicated that his cell phone had been turned off on June 3rd of 2004.
So we have, you say he was reported on the 7th or the 9th?
The 9th.
The 9th. So we have a 6-day window of uncertainty.
We do.
It was a 6-day window before the police department actually processed it. Which makes sense.
Because we thought he was at the cabin.
He said he was going to the cabin, so I could see a day, and I think it was 2 days before his dad went up there to check, right?
To me, he went to the cabin. How long was he going to stay? I don't know. But I didn't live. For them, hey, he didn't come home. Well, he's not answering his phone. Well, maybe he just wants more time. I mean, it was just like he wasn't living with his second wife either. He was living with his parents.
Right.
So there were no children expecting him, and so it was just kind of like, well, what should we do? Should somebody go up there? Is he going to be found in the cabin? And everybody was a little nervous about being the one to go to the cabin and find something, and then kind of doing a search around, and then it was like, maybe we should try to find that truck, that car, Sequoia, and talk to the police. So there was no real he should have been home at 5 o'clock and we better call the police, because he said he would be home at a certain date. And the cabin, you could stay for a week or two, and nobody else was up there. And
it's not like it's a rural cabin, It's has amenities and everything you need. And
in this cabin, what was it used for? What was the significance of him going up there?
So my dad built that cabin when I was in my mom's womb, and it was a part of our growing up. It was a part of their growing up.
Yep.
My dad just loved Flaming Gorge, and Steve loved Flaming Gorge. We would always go up on weekends, and so it was really kind of a connecting point for the family. And he was going to go up to paint it. It was just, I think it was a place where Steve felt at peace out in the mountains. I mean, it was a place where he could go and connect and be in the nature. And
you think, staying at the cabin for a week instead of in that little back room.
Well, yeah,
hey,
it's a vacation.
This is an upgrade, so why not stick around for a while? I'm in a bad frame of mind. This is a nice break, and it's 3 hours from here, and so it's it's just a second home and a lot nicer than what he was living in.
So when he left that day, I believe it was a Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. June 3rd was a Thursday. Dad, internally, immediate circle, it was only Dad and Mom. And hey, I'm leaving. So they were the initial
He
ones.
stopped by to grab Axel.
Right.
And then said, I'm on my way.
Right. But Dad is the one who realized, okay, my son hasn't called me.
Yeah.
Do we know how long it took him to realize that something was off, or why?
If you could get those phone records, everybody blew up that phone,
Yeah.
and then it was full, and
Yeah.
nobody could leave a message anymore. And everybody was trying to contact him, but the phone was full. So if you could get those phone records, which the police would never do because there's no crime committed, so they weren't very helpful.
It was not in the file.
Yeah, and, but that's so long ago, I don't know that they would be, but yes, people started calling, and then Axel was calling, and then I'm like, all right, your children are worried about you, you need to call somebody, and I'm starting to get angry with him because he won't respond to his children. I'm like, not for me, but for your children, tell them where you are. And we never ever heard another word. So it was probably 3 or 4 days before they went, why didn't he come home? And then his dad was very, very adamant that the car payment continued to be made. So he paid it till that car was paid off. And he felt like if I take that car or turn that phone off, he paid that phone bill for years and paid that car, because if I take those away from him, then he truly has nothing. And I say, if you had let that car go into collections, then somebody would have been looking for him and would have gone out trying to find that car. Of course, if it's where we think it is, that wouldn't have helped anyway, because nobody would have found it. But Boyd did not want him to have any more trauma, so he was trying to
I would have done the same thing for my son, not knowing.
Protect.
keep that phone alive, because it's its only lifeline.
The car was on a lease, so Toyota eventually did get involved because he got to the end of the lease and didn't have a car to turn in, and so then he explained the situation that he was missing. And honestly, I think Toyota has looked for him harder than anybody, and that car has never turned up, not any sign of it. You would think that somewhere that car would show up. So
typically that's what happens. In this type of scenario, an investigation, okay, we have nothing to go on, we'll wait for the car to go up, pop up. The car will lead us to the next direction. What's inside of the car? What's the state of the car? Where is the car? And that continues the investigative avenue, but that never happened.
Never.
Never happened. No sign, no trace, no clues. So what happened when it come to obtaining the phone records? Do we know at that time, like?
Well, yeah, go ahead. I mean,
my dad tried to get him.
But he's not the owner of the phone.
Yeah, and he tried to get the credit card, and they just kept saying, Steven's an adult. We can't provide you with that, and that's, you probably had, because he was an adult.
He's an adult.
He's like, he can leave if he wants to leave. We're not going to give you phone records or anything else.
And unless the police say otherwise.
Right. So my dad and mom were extremely frustrated because they couldn't get any information, because they always heard, well, your son is an adult, he can do what he wants to, and it would be a breach of our confidential tie to your son.
Yeah. So we don't know when the phone stopped working, or.
I mean, it would just go to voicemail, but then you couldn't leave a voicemail because all of us were calling.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And Boyd said at one point that the messages got cleared and he was able to call again. Now, I can't verify that, and I don't believe that that's true, because
I think they expire at some time.
Oh, and that might.
I think that there maybe was a point where it was like they had been stored so long that they were just deleted.
But that's what made them believe he was around.
I see that.
Somewhere.
So
and they
relatively.
would get phone calls where nobody was on the other end of the phone, just sitting there, and they were sure that was him calling.
Well,
but we didn't have caller ID at that time either.
Maybe this is where you talk about that, because maybe that ties into that.
Yeah, well, and maybe taking a step back, so, and I don't know what you guys all think, but in my mind and Liz's mind, and there's kind of 3 scenarios here. So there's kind of he committed suicide somehow. Life was too much in his mental health, and I think that's an option. Everything was coming down on him, so he just left and, maybe living on the street somewhere, or trying to start a new life somewhere. That could be an option. Steve, through kind of just his life, I think there were a lot of people that, had revenge for him. So I wouldn't be surprised if somebody tried to knock him off or something like that as well.
Anything's possible. I've worked a lot of cases where families try to get scammed. You have people that try to take advantage of the parents of missing persons, particularly in the residence where they went missing from. Those things get put in police records, and weirdos get a hold of them, and it's not uncommon to hear those types of things with families of the missing. All different types of things like that happen.
Well, I never heard Steve say anything about anybody that he was afraid of or worried about.
I do not think that he is around. I don't think that he would have been able to not be in Axel's life.
Yeah.
So I just don't think that he's.
Well,
I agree with that.
And I do.
100%.
And
he just loved him
with your
so
life,
much.
I mean, I think Steve wanted to be everybody's friend and help people, and I think when Jessica got remarried, and that was hard on him, because he has 2 children that he wanted to be their dad, and I think he, at that point where the mental illness was becoming so much more challenging, that's just a hard place to be.
Yeah. Let's go into that direction, which I don't believe. I hope he's out there. I hope he's somewhere. Based upon what you told me, despite the mental health decline, there's a world of pride within him. And
Very pride.
you're not going to leave your kids. Not for that long.
I don't see it.
No. Even with mental health, you're not for that long. You're not going to do that. It's very unlikely in that sense. If somebody were to have done something, or if you want to assume self-harm in this scenario, what do you guys think happened?
He ran the truck off of the cliff, right to the bottom of the lake. Fastest way to go, and
In the gorge? The Flaming Gorge?
that's where I think he is. And but I don't know if it was intentional. But I think that truck and him on that date went in the water, and that's why nothing has ever happened since.
I agree. And I think, I know Jessica, his second wife, also agrees. She's thrilled to hear that somebody's finally searching there, because that's where she thinks he is too.
Okay, moving on to taking everything the police have given me, which hasn't changed anything. Everything that you have given me up to now hasn't changed anything, which means everything that I suspect and want to do is extremely accurate, and it's possible. I'm not here to provide false hope in any way, but looking for this vehicle, it does add up that the vehicle is here, it's underwater. The routes that he would have taken, we've researched those in historical satellite imagery, and there's not a lot of accident scenarios on land where his vehicle would have gone unfound for 20 years. Right. Maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks, when you count in hunting seasons and all of the other things that have taken place over the last 2 decades, not possible. In other areas and other searches, it is. But there's just not that kind of terrain on these routes. When I say these routes, I'm gonna bring this up, and you tell me, what route would he have taken? This is where he was staying, correct?
Yeah.
The top route that's highlighted in dark blue?
Highlighted, yeah.
So he would have taken this route?
Yeah.
More than likely.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was just the route we always took. It was
Always.
It's quicker.
I mean,
It's almost
the route.
sixes. It's easier. It's an easier drive.
The bottom route goes through Vernal, and it's very dry, deserty. The top route, it's beautiful.
You
Come
climb
through
way
it,
up.
forest.
Yeah.
And it was just, it's the new route is what they call it, because the old, they didn't, this road wasn't built yet back when I think you guys were young, right? And in the winters it was hard to access, and so they built the new route.
Through here, through this area here, yeah.
And so when they built the new route, that was the way my dad always went.
And the truth is, nobody knows if he ever got to the cabin. He never called anybody and said, I'm here.
Yeah.
And the neighbors didn't see anything in the research I did?
People don't live there year round.
Okay.
It was a key. It's not an automatic anything where you would have seen that he opened a gate. It was just get out, put a key in, open the gate, and go in. So nobody knows if he ever got to the cabin.
So where was the gas station at that he got gas?
It was somewhere in town, like from we lived in Riverton, and so he would have left there. And however that, I don't know what station that card was used at.
But somewhere in the Salt Lake Valley.
But it was somewhere going towards Parley's Canyon.
Towards Parley.
Okay. So
I don't know.
In ruling in the realm of most likely, you guys believe overwhelmingly it's most likely he would have taken this route.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm going to bring you into the map that I have built based upon these two routes. You have the top route and the bottom route. I mean, this is just so like, that's a stretch. That's a stretch.
Yeah.
We get to that when we have to get to that. But ruling in the realm of most likely and highest probability, this here is the route that we're concerned with. When we were in the detective's office earlier doing the presentation, Dave pointed out Echo Dam on the route.
Echo Reservoir right there, big reservoir right by the side of the freeway, literally right next to it. I don't think we've ever searched that one. That one's up there kind of by East Canyon where we've done some of those searches, but the highway is a direct tumble into the water right there.
Yeah, I didn't look at that.
That's one that we should search regardless.
Yeah.
Even for anything, because I don't know if it's ever been scanned on that shore.
Okay.
And that's an easy one to get to. And it's the first real stop on the way.
That's an area of concern. My biggest point of concern in this is he went out there, it's a long drive.
About 3 hours.
3:20.
You get in here, most accidents, it's very common for accidents to happen near your address or where you start or where you end up, right? On this stretch here, we have this location, which I'll change the satellite imagery here. On the side of the road he would have been traveling.
Moose Pond.
You see these barricades here? This structure, he would have been coming this way.
Correct.
Now, we know there's barricades here, right? And it's possible you can get here if you're sleepy, drowsy. It is common for something like this to add up.
Okay.
When I was going through historical images, this is 2009, it's still here. Sometime between 2009 and 2006, it was put up. At the time he came through there, see here in 2006 it wasn't there, but when you go to 2009, it was put up. So I'm guessing this was reinforced more of as a recreational area during that 3-year period. But if we go back to when the time he went missing, this has given us imagery from 5 months after he went missing, September of 2004. This was it's a logical accident location if it's deep enough to conceal a vehicle. And then again, it's probably nothing. But in researching areas,
I mean, it doesn't hurt to just do your sonar on it.
That would be a lot easier than going through the whole Flaming
Right.
Gorge Reservoir if you found it there.
so this is just one of the locations based upon it.
Logical.
Yeah, we're looking at the routes he would have taken and accident locations that can go, decades without being noticed. You got a dark green vehicle, 2 or 3 feet of water on top of it, it will go unseen for a very long time. This is an area of concern here,
Sheep Creek.
as well as this area here.
They're just so busy. I mean, there are so many people fishing and kayaking, and
hanging out at Sheep Creek. There's a campground right there. There's a geological loop across the street from it. That is a busy,
one in the
busy.
morning. It was.
But in June,
I think somebody.
I don't know that the time of day is gonna.
Yeah. I mean,
there's no way.
if we're considering,
Splash into a pond. I mean,
a lot of times, especially this location here, I would rule more in the theory of possible self-harm, which it could have been done after hours. Is there a specific spot on this map, and I'm asking this just because I'm not done building this until I've spoken with you. If you guys were at the cabin, having a family outing, where would you guys access the water? Was it all over, or was it this one
At
spot?
the marina.
At the main
Cedar
marina?
Springs
That's
Marina.
one place.
So over here.
Yeah.
So over here at the marina.
Or where's the place we always go, Kiv?
Or Mustang.
Mustang.
Ridge on the other
There's
side
a
of the
boat
lake.
ramp
Yep.
there.
Over here?
And then
Yep.
there's a swimming beach just to the right of that.
isn't it called Swim Beach?
Yeah,
Yeah.
up north. So that area, there's a swim beach, that first inlet on the left.
Here?
Yeah.
No, you see the parking lot right there? That's Swim Beach.
Yep.
Yeah.
So a lot of times in the summer, we'd be in that inlet or the inlet right above there. We'd park the boat, we'd swim, and I'm sure you guys would go there a lot.
Well, I know that we don't
And
talk
that
about
might be
Lucerne
somewhere.
frequently, but he
Yeah.
did go to Lucerne on the other side of the lake too. Like that wasn't out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
So
The
here's the
next
cabin I have marked, the actual address. And you guys, it's not. It belongs to a new owner, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Over here, I have two bodies of water. Through satellite imaging, this one has dried up. There's a year that this one has dried up since. This one, no.
So at that edge, like if you keep going, like there is a significant
true. There's a
drop off.
huge drop
Like
off.
there's an overlook, Red Canyon Lodge. They have an overlook that you can look straight down, and it's what 1,000 feet.
And he
I mean,
was in a
you
four-wheel
technically could
drive vehicle,
get there,
so
but-
he could make his way to the water, maybe in a way that a normal car would not.
I
be
don't
able
see
to,
that
but
happening,
I don't know.
but it is possible.
Yeah.
Do you want to show them the spot that you're talking about, the cove by the dam?
Up here,
It's
right here, by the
that's
dam.
So if you go south, keep following this road. There's the bridge.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the cove.
So that road, as you're coming up, you can see how it winds. There's an access point just to the north side of that bridge.
On this route with the Echo and obviously the gorge, we've addressed the locations enough. There's nothing else that sticks out outside of the gorge in this area.
Lucerne, you said?
Yeah, Antelope Flats.
Antelope Flats is a little bit. It's more on the Wyoming side.
Kind of up in that area
yep.
there.
So there's another marina up there. It's called Lucerne. There it is.
Yeah, that's
And Antelope Flats, that's a spot that he would love to go for skiing because it had the flattest water. So we would go there, but we would typically come from Cedar Springs Marina by boat and get to this point. But there were times that we launched directly from Lucerne.
Let's say he doesn't go the top route, and for some reason he comes through the bottom route, and we've outlined some areas of concern. Obviously leaving right away, Jordanelle, extremely populated, highly unlikely, but it's
We
still,
hated that lake because it was so populated.
it's, which is good to know. Moving on from Jordanelle, that's not really an accident location here though. And you come on down.
Strawberry.
We have Strawberry, which there is this stretch of the road on the right side. I haven't been there, so I don't know how easy it is, but we know there's a ramp, and there's another ramp over here.
That's the ladders.
That's the ladders.
Right here. Yeah.
It's very popular as well.
Yeah. Accident location,
Not as much as Jordan though.
potentially. I just don't know the
Maybe.
distance here. When we get there, we'll be able to say, oh yeah, this is impossible, or
definitely
it's
a
possible.
drop-off.
This is a satellite image from, and you can see most of it's dried up near the road, and just is so unlikely unless this ramp was accessed. Unlikely, but I have it marked because it's on a way to travel if we want to assume he was going to the cabin, right? and you get up here closer. That's pretty much it on that route. This right here is an area of concern. On the other map, there was a road here. You can see cars, but it crosses over right here.
Yeah.
Accidents, I've seen accidents, clear guardrails, I've seen walls get replaced, nobody second guessing them and so forth. So this is an area of concern. Obviously, it's less likely ruling on the realm of most probability of him not taking this route.
Yeah.
And knowing more and talking more to you guys, I couldn't get over taking this route unless I was a really old guy and I hated the city and I was in love with this area out here. But the more you talk about it, it's more beautiful to come up this way, and it's quicker if we're theorizing the vehicle's underwater and something happened. It's an accident location, or he chose somewhere that was special to him to escape the stuff that he was dealing with, the struggles that he was dealing with, and it makes sense. I hate to talk about it like that, but...
You had mentioned other locations, and I've been thinking about that since. As children, we would always go down to Ephraim. Ephraim, Utah. It's about 2 hours south of Salt Lake.
EPH.
And that's where he was born?
No. That's where my dad. That's where my dad was born. But my grandparents are buried there. We would go down there a lot as children.
All right, I've notated that, and we'll throw those darts when we have to.
Yeah.
Knowing everything that you know, knowing what we're capable of, where would you send me right now?
Flaming Gorge.
The Gorge.
Absolutely.
I think that Moose Pond is definitely worth taking a look at, but I think the lake itself is where I would focus. The spot is where I struggle.
Yeah.
Because Mustang Ridge is probably the only one that I could think of you could find a way down without anybody really seeing tracks or
hitting the lane at the bottom.
And I mean, I don't know where in that area, but it would be somewhere on that side.
Okay.
That's my opinion, but.
Well, the gorge is really, really big.
Yeah.
And there is no way we can even begin to search even half of it. But we can search the most logical locations on this trip. We can search the areas of concern. And then the accident locations, going out to the other target areas, it just becomes a process of elimination. We work our way in the most logical, and then we just start expanding. Jordanelle, Ephraim, Coeur d'Alene, and right now we're just going to rule in the air highest probability, which everything points towards the gorge. He was heading there. He said he was going there. We have to take him for his word. That's where he was heading. And it seems like he had a strong emotional tie there. And a reason, if that's what he was going to do. And I think the other possibilities are just, we consider them as possibilities when we have to, as far as this kind of searching goes. We'll get out there, we'll see what we're working with, and if there's other technology that we need to get, we'll work on that. So sometimes it can take me coming in and searching 2 or 3 different times on different trips before I'm able to locate something. And if we don't find anything, this is a case that I think that is one that could be done for quite a few years, just because it's logical. And everything points to him and his vehicle probably being underwater. And I say that very, very respectively, because I don't ever like to consider that. But there's nothing else. There's nothing else here. Nothing. And his characteristics, most importantly, of who he was as a person, a man internally, I don't see it. If he was here, you would know about it. Is there anything else that we didn't discuss? Is there anything else that you want to say in regards to Stephen, what we're going to do?
When do you start?
We're going to start very early in the morning.
Tomorrow?
Yeah, we're gonna drive out probably 5 or 6 in the morning. And in regards to that, you guys are more than welcome to be there. I don't.
If I would be in the way, or if I can
not at all.
be up there.
If you want to be there, you're there. Yeah, we're here to serve you. I'm not gonna ever say you can't be there. If you want to be there, I want you there. It's not easy. It's something that you feel like you want to do. By all means.
I mean, it's been 20 years in a month and a half, right? So my recollection of things are
you were a
fraction
teenager.
of what actually happened.
Yeah.
But with having something fresh in the mind and going up there, would it jog anything else loose? That might help. That's
And most importantly, don't think with your feelings right now.
Yeah.
Think with the you 5 years from now. If you want to look back, like what would you in 5 years be happy with what decision you make right now? That's kind of where you got to think.
Yeah.
You know, you want to look back and be like, oh, I wasn't there. I'm glad I wasn't there. You know, you
Did
kind
I
of
give everything that I had? Yeah. Okay. We'll talk through it.
Yeah.
It's tough though. So that's the decision you have to make. I support you no matter what.
Appreciate it.
And there's room for you.
I support you too.
Thanks. You don't want to go fish the green for a minute?
I do want to go. Let's go.
Just go be in the area.
And we'll probably, most likely, our plans right now are to stay out there until probably Sunday night. So we'll head up and stay somewhere. We don't know yet, but we know we're going to be up there for at least 2 days, for sure, unless something happens quickly.
Yeah.
And then from there, if you don't find anything, you kind of regroup, go to other locations.
Yeah,
and
we'll regroup and check as many locations as we can. The more I know, the more locations that we put on the map there in the gorge. Probably just going to be in the gorge for now. But it's all by ear, and we'll keep track. If I don't, we won't. If we don't find him, we will. There's still a lot of work to do. We're in the Flaming Gorge. It's a canyon, so what you see up top is exactly what's underneath.
What were you talking about, ice?
This is where we're gonna find something, right here.